It's time to do one of my most requested top 10s in my 6-year YouTube history. Finally, we're going to do it. Top 10 twist endings in horror. Let's go. What's up, guys? Super excited today, jumping back into the top 10 game. Haven't done one in a while. I think the last one I did was like top 10 dogs. But I was on a run there where I was just like doing quite a few of them. But for the last like few months, I've been doing just a lot of other content, especially like reviews and stuff. And sometimes that can get stale, and I miss doing top 10. So you know what? I posted on Twitter, give me a top 10 and I will name the video after you. And I had over 100 submissions. That surprised me. Thank you so much, guys. Apparently you guys missed the top 10s. And so I'm going to do two of them. I'm going to record today. I'm going to do top 10 twists, and I'm going to do top 10 outfits in horror. Okay, so those are the first two that are coming. But more from that list are definitely coming because you guys threw me out some awesome ideas. But we're doing twist endings in horror. This was actually 3 different people that suggested this. It's MJKnowItAll, SarahLynn, and Roman Brady. So you three, this video is dedicated to you. And this is a doozy. This is one that I've probably been asked to do quite a few times over the years. I don't know why I never did it, but finally we're gonna do twist endings. And let me tell you, there are so many great horror twist endings out there. This was not an easy list to put together. I can't just give you 10. I'm gonna give you 4 honorable mentions, okay? Real quick. So anyway, let's jump into this. And obviously, guys, these are going to contain spoilers, okay? I think that goes without saying, but I'll probably put some chapter stops in the info box too. Just so that way if you haven't seen the movie, you can kind of skip over it. First honorable mention is going to be Halloween 4. I've talked so many times about the ending of Halloween 4. It's pretty much the reason why I became obsessed with the franchise. Because, you know, it's a bait and switch. You think that Myers is alive coming down that hall, even with, the, you know, putting the mask back on and everything. But then you hear the scream, he comes back. Loomis's reaction really sells that scene, but then the big twist is you see that it's not Myers, but it's actually Jamie Lloyd. And I think this is the first and only time they've ever done something like that in the franchise, where another character in the movie killed somebody in the style of Myers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, yeah, Jamie Lloyd's the only person to do that, and great twist ending. So anyway, next honorable mention is going to be The Invitation, actually. This is one of those polarizing types of films. These characters get invited to this party. Logan Marshall Green is your main character. And it doesn't feel like your normal dinner party. There's a cryptic atmosphere throughout this thing. And so we find out in the end that this is a cult where they commit suicide. They kill themselves. And then the big twist ending at the end of that, so it's like a twist on top of a twist, is that when he walks outside, he sees like this beacon, this light that you know, lights up amongst all the other houses in the neighborhood. So all these houses are part of the cult. But also, like, certain members of the party aren't there to kill themselves, but the members of the cult, they're so up their own asses that they feel like, I have the right to not only kill myself, but kill you as well. So it's definitely like a Hollywood elitist type of thing. These are people that are dealing with grief. They've lost loved ones, but you put that type of grief into a certain social class who thinks that they're untouchable, then you can get some scary stuff, and that's what happens with The Invitation. Okay, next honorable mention is going to be Final Destination 5, and the reason I put the 5th one on here is because, honestly, it's my favorite. I think all the Final Destination movies have good endings, but this one is really just another level up, you know, because the whole time you're thinking that this is just the next movie in the saga. And then at the end of the movie, you realize that our main characters are actually on that same plane that was the beginning of the first movie. So the entire franchise is sort of a loop, which is completely insane. Last honorable mention, but definitely not the least, and I think it does deserve to be somewhere else on the countdown, but oh well, it's got to be on here anyway. Scream, of course. I mean, Scream is the ultimate whodunit slasher movie of all time. A lot of you are going to say, why isn't this movie in the top 10? Yes, it deserves to be in the top 10, okay? But I have so many great twist endings on here that I ended up putting this one in the honorable mentions. But the first movie, we never realized that there are two killers. We automatically think that there are one, which is kind of a problem later in the franchise because you expect the two killers. So when it is revealed that there are two killers, and it's beautifully executed too, because you think that Billy Loomis is dead, and then he comes back. It's almost too easy, you know, because they were able to use the corn syrup and all that, and you're like, oh, but you really made me think that. But you know what? That's just, there are no rules. As long as it's believable, and it is believable, then it can happen. And so it's revealed that Billy's the killer, and then all of a sudden, here comes Stu, Matthew Lillard, who's also the killer. So then you have that great back and forth between the two of them. And I swear, like, here's another top 10 idea, but like best horror duos, Billy and Stu would easily be in that list. And I'll even say, I still don't think there's any two killers that can top Billy and Stu. You know, it was all downhill from there. Okay, top 10, here we go. Number 10 is Us. I kind of suspected as I was watching it, but I thought that ending is so good that there's no way that they're gonna do that. And of course they did it. You know, what do you get when you have like a family who goes on a vacation and they see the exact same family? It's almost like a mirror image of themselves. And then that mirror image comes and tries to kill them. You know, the makings of a great horror movie there. But they go even deeper with the plot, and there's these like two civilizations, one on the top and one down below. And the movie got itself in trouble because a lot of people were almost overthinking the plot, I guess the semantics, the logistics, but still I thought it was genius. So our main character, in the end, we find out that she was originally supposed to be down below, and she swapped as a child. And you know, you gotta be careful with that, because the way people acted down below, very different than, you know, the normal people up above. But there were little clues along the way. And this was a character that, you know, knew what was going on, and she was trying to protect herself and her family. And of course, she didn't want to go back down to the bottom. So loved that ending. Number 9, High Tension. This is probably one of the most debatable twist endings ever. I constantly see people say that they hate this movie because of the ending, because they think it doesn't match up. But one thing you're not realizing is that this whole movie is told from the mind of a psychopath, you know? And when you go that route in, you know, telling your story, controlling the narrative, you can't trust it. You can't trust the mind of a psychopath. You know, a person like that is going to think and see things that aren't actually there, or aren't actually the way that you think they transpired, if that makes sense. But yeah, of course, the ending of the movie is Marie. You know, you think her and her friend are running from this crazy hillbilly killer, and at the end of the movie, we realize that there is no hillbilly killer. It's actually Marie, and she's obsessed with her friend. She wants this lesbian relationship with her friend, and so she's so deranged in the head that she ends up killing her family and chasing after her throughout. I thought the ending was beautifully executed, though. I loved it. I'm just one of those type of people, too, that I don't need everything explained to me. As long as there's like an emotional connection there and it makes sense, then I'm on board. Number 8 is Goodnight Mommy. And I know Goodnight Mommy is one of 3 different adaptations of Tale of Two Sisters. Well, I guess Tale of Two Sisters is the original, and then you have this one and The Uninvited. This one, I believe, is a French film, correct me if I'm wrong, and Uninvited is the American version. I think there's definitely some liberties taken with Goodnight Mommy. It feels like its own thing, even though the twist is somewhat similar. But I don't think it's as confusing and much more accessible than Tale of Two Sisters, which is genius, by the way. But I love Goodnight Mommy. You know, in the end of the movie, you find out that these 2 children, you know, their mother, she's had like plastic surgery on her face. But at the end of the movie, you realize that there is no mommy, and there's only one of the kids. The other 2 actually died in a fire. And so there's this like tug of war between the twins, one of them thinking that she's not the mother, and the other one thinking she is. And so the whole time you're thinking they're fighting each other on this, but it's not that. It's just the deranged mind of the one that survived the fire. Crazy stuff. Number 7, Saw. No surprise here. I'm sure most would think that Saw would be on this list, but let me tell you, man, when I saw that movie in the theater at the end, after all this that's going on, when we see the dead guy on the floor actually get up, my mind was freaking blown away. And I think the way they were able to achieve that is just by misdirection, by constantly keeping your mind off of that guy that was on the floor, who happened to be Tobin Bell, Jigsaw. And how do you do that? You keep these main characters focused on the task at hand. You know, they have to get out of the situation that they are in, going so far as to saw their own foot off, you know, and the other one's got to get this key. And the guy's just laying right there the whole time. And it's one of those things that was so good, you had to have a twist ending in every Saw movie going forward, and it became a cliche. Number 6, Sixth Sense. Appropriately number 6, I guess. But I remember when this movie came out back in '99, it did a few things. You know, it brought back Bruce Willis's career. He proved himself as not just an action star, but he could do pretty much any genre out there, and he was great in horror. Haley Joel Osment turned in a performance that was Oscar nominated, and he was amazing in the role. And throughout the movie, I swear they're giving you so many clues, and M. Night Shyamalan has even stated this behind the scenes, that he was shocked that people didn't pick up on the twist way before it was presented. And I think it was another one of those things where you're so invested in this story, in these great characters, that you forget to like focus your brain on what is actually happening and what could be the twist ending. So it's one of those twist endings where when it does happen, you're like, how did I not see that coming? And when you go back and watch it again, everything is just right there in front of you. And that's just amazing for a director to be able to pull that off. And that's why M. Night Shyamalan is one of the best in terms of twist endings. But yeah, just in case you didn't know, Bruce Willis is dead throughout the whole movie. Number 5 is The Mist, which is a movie that I didn't see until pretty late in the game. I saw it, I think, for the first time like 2 years ago. And it's one of those movies where the twist was so good that everybody was talking about it. And people that didn't even see the movie were talking about it. So I finally had to watch this movie. And yeah, it's a great twist. I think the twist was just built up so big that by the time I saw it, I was like, yeah, that was great, but man, I wish I didn't even know about the hype so I could have enjoyed it that much more. Our main character, David, has only 4 bullets and he kills everybody except himself. And then right after, he goes out and then there's the army. The situation is under control, and it turns out he didn't have to do it in the first place. And so all this anguish and grief, like, oh my God, if I would have just waited like a beat longer, my family could have survived. Can you imagine that? Like your son and your wife are dead and they didn't have to be. Like that will destroy a person mentally for the rest of their lives. Number 4 is Triangle. And this is the movie that will bake your noodle more than any other movie in this list. I swear to God, this movie is completely batshit crazy in terms of like mind F's. And it centers around this character, Jess, and she's on this boat and her son dies. There's this killer on board, and there seems to be some strange occurrences going around, seeing the same people over and over. And so you realize in the end of the movie that there is this loop, and she's actually in purgatory. She died in this car accident. And so her punishment, because she was not a good person at all, not a good mother, she beat her kid, and she had to relive the same day over and over and over again. But just, you know, from an execution standpoint, this is one of the most elaborate twists I have ever seen in a movie. Elaborate plots, really. Number 3 is April Fool's Day. This is the movie that really does a great job of making you think that it's a slasher, when I guess it's not really a slasher because nobody dies. But they do a great job throughout the movie, especially the first time you watch it, where you think people are dying. You think these murders are being committed, but if you really pay attention, you realize that they are not. And this whole thing was a big April Fool's joke. And at the end of the movie, when the final girl, Amy Steele, runs out into the room and she realizes that all her friends that she thought was dead are not dead, and they're all just sitting there in the living room. Talk about going a long way to create an April Fool's joke. Like, that's just mean. But the ending is just brilliant. Number 2, we're going to go with Sleepaway Camp. And this is the movie that completely floored me when I first saw it. My friend introduced it to me, and it's one of those movies where you watch it and you're thinking, why is this movie being recommended by everybody? Because it's not well acted. It's sort of silly. But then once you see the ending of the movie, that's the treat. And you don't suspect it at all. You suspect that Angela might be the killer at a certain point. But this is one of those cases where the reveal is the thing that's memorable about the movie. You know, if it was just Angela that was the killer, I think Sleepaway Camp would almost be forgotten in time. But just the way that this is presented with the camera pulling back, you got the crazy moaning. Angela's face pops up with her mouth wide open. Camera pulls back and you see this naked dude. You can obviously tell that they put some kind of mask over his face, you know, like an Angela mask. But this is one of those endings that will scar you for life after you see it, and it'll take the jaws of life to remove it from your skull. And you're not even thinking about the fact that Angela was a dude, even though it's right there in front of your face, just because of how the ending is presented and how shocking it is. Okay, what could number one be, right? What could top that? I'll tell you what could top that. Number one is Orphan. And this is a twist that I never saw coming because of how believable the character was. You know, this was a child playing this role. And so out of all the different outcomes, you know, you would think that it's a child killing all these people, even though that's not a twist because she's doing that throughout the movie. We know that she's bad. So what could the twist be? You'd never guess that the twist is that she is actually an adult. She's in her 30s. And, you know, it's just the reveal of it too, how she's like pulling her teeth out and everything. And you're literally seeing like the masking of her age being presented in front of you. And this was a great psychotic character too. This is a character that was obsessed with trying to take over this family, trying to seduce the father. So you got some really taboo issues there to deal with. And this movie's pretty fucked up if I'm being honest. But damn, what a great ending. And people love movies like this too, you know, where you want this kid to be caught so bad. You know, you're on the side of the family. It's not one of those movies where you hate the people that are being killed, you know, and you just want to see the killer kill them. No, you're invested in this family, and, you know, you see the mother being accused of all these things, you know, played beautifully by Vera Farmiga. And I believe the prequel is going to be coming here pretty soon, which I can't wait. So anyway, guys, there you go. My top 10 favorite twist endings of all time in horror. I know I missed quite a few of them. Let me know down in the comments which ones are your favorites. And keep in mind, I haven't seen every movie, okay? So there's a good chance that your favorite twist ending, I might not have seen the movie, all right? But let me know your favorites in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day, and Drumdum out.